everybody. Today I want to give you a quick tutorial for assignment 141, evaluating sources. And I wanted to do a quick video because this is an assignment that has a lot of different moving parts and it can be a little complicated for some folks. So I'm going to walk you through just very quickly how to do this. So we're in week 1 here, and I am within the 1-4 Sources of Scientific Information folder. Now, at the very end here, you'll see the 141 short answer. And I have a feeling that most folks usually start taking a look at the assignment and work backwards from there. And that can be a good way to start kind of knowing where you're going. The problem with that is if you try to figure out what this assignment means without doing the prior parts, it can make it sort of complicated. So I'm not even going to open the assignment yet. I'm going to be in this folder and I'm going to go through the steps that it tells me to. So we can read a little overview, sources of scientific information here. And the next one is where I'm going to start my work, web page evaluating sources. And let's see, it says, how do we determine whether something you read online is credible or believable? This is a major theme throughout this course, so this is important. Go to this webpage and click through each of the tabs provided to learn more about what to consider. Okay, so I'm going to click this and do what it says. So this is one of the major themes that we're going to be using throughout this course. It's called the CRAPO. I know the term is the acronym's not the best, but it's an evaluation rubric, and it stands for currency, relevancy, accuracy, authority, purpose, and objectivity. And it is a tool that will actually help us give a score to anything that you read. And the higher the score, the more credible the resource is. And this is a major way that we can start making heads or tails of information that we read and see every day when we start asking these questions like, what do I believe? Who do I believe when it comes to global warming? Who do I believe when it comes to autism and vaccinations? So it says go through the tabs and take a look. Okay, so what's currency? So when considering currency, ask yourself, was it published recently? Okay. And even down here at the bottom, it gives you some ideas. Date of publication, websites, look at the last date the website was updated, what we want to avoid. Sources that have been published more than 5 years ago. Okay, so if I read an article and it was published more than 5 years ago, I want to be cautious about using that kind of information to build my own opinion upon, because that's pretty out of date. Relevancy. Again, let's take a look. For print databases, read the abstract, summary, or table of contents. For a website, same thing, scan the full text. What to avoid? Sources that provide minimal usable content. Okay, good. We can do that. So your first task is to go through these different tabs and become familiar with this CRAPO tool and how it works. All right, we're going to go step by step through this. So now I'm going to go back. Great, I did that. Let's take a look at the website evaluation tutorial. And it says, on this webpage, read the information under the first tab. Click on the activity tab. Read the source evaluation rubric. Choose Site 2, select an article. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing it said was to take a look at this, evaluating sources using CRAPO. Okay, here we go. So this brings us back to our CRAPO tool, and here's the source evaluation rubric that it mentioned. And here's how we use it. Here's how we actually use this CRAPO tool. When we're looking at currency, that first tab, we're going to actually give our article a score from 1 to 4. 4 meaning the published date's included or it's very up to date. 1 meaning no published date listed or it hasn't been updated in the last 18 months. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through each of the parts of the acronym for the CRAPO tool and give the article a score on a scale from 1 to 4, with 4 being the highest. And if you read this note in red, if your article scores a total of 20 to 24, 24 being the highest, what this is telling you is that you can use this article for research. You can use it to form your own opinion because it's recent. It has authority, meaning the people who wrote it know what they're talking about. They have credentials. It's accurate. So if you get an article that scores below a 20, you really should be cautious about either using that for research or even using it to build your own opinion about something. Because what this tool is telling you is that you've given it this score, and somewhere along the way, it's either not very current, not very relevant. Maybe you can't find the person's credentials, and you want to be careful about that. So this is how we're going to use that CRAPO tool. And now let's take a look at where we're going to use it. If we go to the actual tutorial, we just looked here, evaluating sources. The next part of the directions were to click on the activity tab. And here's where we actually get into the activity. And it says choose an article from Site 2 and one from Site 3. So if I click on Site 2, it's going to open an article, Climate and Environment, from the New York Times. If I click on Site 3, it's going to give me an article about global warming from the NRDC. So these are the two websites that you're actually going to be evaluating using that CRAPO tool. So if I go back here and I take a look at the actual assignment, evaluating resources and searching for information, it gives me this little template here, which I'm going to open up. And this template is something you can actually use. You can upload it as a part of your assignment. And you can actually just fill this right out. So you can go to the first article from Site 2, fill out the author, the title, the date published. This is all this information that you need to make a good judgment about it. And then the score from the rubric. So this is going to be that score from the CRAPO tool, that either 0 to 24. Then you're going to do the same thing for Site 3. And then finally, there's a website, 10 Scientific Laws Every Person Should Know. So you're going to be evaluating 2 articles and a website. And finally, you're going to put some comments in. Is it a valid source? Now, if it's a valid source, it should have a high score from the CRAPO source evaluation tool, something above a 20. If it's below a 20, you're going to talk about why that's not so valid. What leads you to that conclusion? So that is the first part of assignment 141. And I think this is where it gets tricky for people. Once you do all of this work and upload this to submit it, you're only halfway finished with the actual assignment. If you take a look at the assignment directions, let's go back into the assignment. Here's the first part. Report your scores for sites 2 and 3. Which resources would you consider to be more valid? That's that template that we just looked at. That's part 1. But don't forget, there's a whole part 2. Next, use the news story you selected and the results of your Shapiro Library research to do the following. So now you're going to choose that article that you chose from Science Daily, your Shapiro Library research, and complete steps 1, 2, 3. So there are 2 major parts to this assignment. I hope this helps you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and good luck. Thanks, everybody.